Yeah, sounds good. So I think we'll start the conversation around the USTC Repeg proposal. We're calling it the Ziggy proposal. Discussion number two. I think this one's really interesting, and I like that little analogy you're using in here. So let's hop right into that. I mean, in your own words, for everyone, most people probably haven't read this yet who are watching. So to everyone who's watching, how do you explain this proposal to them,
So,
Mr. Duncan?
Mr. Duncan,
Yeah.
Mr.
Mr.
Duncan.
Duncan, Mr. Day, that works too. Um, so the way the proposal works is that we have essentially a lever, and then we move it up or down, and this lever just changes the price a little bit, enough to encourage people to trade more on a centralized exchange like Binance or Terra Classic. So we have multiple markets that offer UST, and we want to encourage more trading on all of them. So this is just like a very simple way to encourage it using what's called arbitrage.
Right. And arbitrage is something that I think will, I guess, attract a lot of larger investors, which is honestly, I think it's a good thing to have large whale investors. Of course, we want to have like the baseline of our community, but I think arbitrage is something that can realistically benefit everyone in the ecosystem, right? So that's really cool too. I think when we're talking about arbitrage specifically, like what are we talking here? Like what's going to be the benefit of like what's the percentage benefit in your hypothesis of the arbitrage trades that people will be able to get from using our system here, if you will?
Yeah. Before I get into numbers, I just want to clarify, are you guys familiar with how Terra Classic or Terra used to work, how it maintained its peg?
I know very like all I understand out of that whole argument is basically there were control systems in place that would kind of yeah, there's just control systems in place that would essentially to a certain degree, yeah, mint burn, and that's really the
Right.
extent of my knowledge. Yeah.
It'd probably be good just to recap it if you wouldn't mind, Duncan, for the viewers, because I'm sure a lot of people also are not entirely sure.
No, it's fine. Like I've basically just been reading documentation and doing trading for months and research. So what really is supposed to keep the peg, the stablecoin peg, is arbitrage. So in very simple terms, it's like buy low, sell high, but enough people do that on one asset, enough people buying low, and then they sell high. Even if it's just like a 2 cent difference, they can make money by using leverage, so like huge amounts. In foreign exchange currency trading, it's very useful to trade, say if I wanted to trade the euro and the Great British Pound and the US dollar in pairs, then based on how those currencies move, right? Buy low, sell high, and then the price of those dollars change more or less. For how the Oracle worked, the mint burn. So the mint burn would basically say, okay, we have an exchange rate for the Luna token, and then that helps determine the exchange rate for the Terra stablecoins. And then this worked in reverse as well. So if UST was depegged and we needed to cover, let's say, the difference between the depeg and the peg. So like if we had the US dollar and it was 98 cents, then in the market module is what it's called, we mint a little bit more Luna to cover the difference of 2 cents. This is important because when we had this mint and burn going on, the people who would take the price, like the price effect of that, would be the people staking it, because they just get diluted out with new Luna coming into the system. So actually, that's really why we have so many right now.
Right.
Yeah, I
Gotcha.
think an interesting maybe distinction here, if I'm understanding correctly here, Duncan, is what people are normally used to as an arbitrage. This is a scenario or on one exchange you have, let's say, more buying pressure, on another exchange you have more selling pressure. And so due to that, their prices, they create a little bit of a spread, and then people can transfer between the two. In this scenario, you're saying that instead of just simply a difference in valuations on two exchanges, you're going to be minting or burning to kind of force the price to stay at a target or a range around a targeted price. Is that kind of accurate here?
You've got the first half right. So what you're referring to is called cross-market arbitrage. So let's say UST is 2 cents on Binance, and if it's 3 cents on Terra, then you have what's called the cross-market arbitrage opportunity. I can send my UST to Terra and then sell it for 1 penny extra, right, per unit that I buy. So there's actually no minting going on. What this proposal is intended to do is, like, because a lot of people have said, oh, Binance has like a huge amount of the supply, LFG has another huge amount, we have like a bunch that are sitting in ozone, you know, like billions. We're talking billions. So like the majority of the supply, maybe like 80%. So what we want to do is we want to find a way to say, hey, can you bring your money back onto the chain? Not everyone will, and that's fine. But that's why we want to sort of encourage trading on our chain, because that also fills the Oracle pool through gas fees and swap fees. So,
Gotcha. I think another point that's because that's the market arbitrage, the differences between two different exchanges is something that people see a lot, they're more familiar with. So I think drawing that comparison or showing how this is different to that is a good point. As well as I think maybe another thing too is in your proposals, you mentioned quite a bit about under collateralized stabilizing or under collateralized stablecoins. And people are, I feel like, more generally familiar with a $1 peg is upheld by $1 of backed assets, at least in theory. Hopefully, that's how it works out in a lot of scenarios. So that's where people claim. In this scenario, it doesn't really work like that. You're not having $1 backed assets. Could you maybe explain how this differentiates from that standard that people are used to?
yeah. Sorry, my dog's.
Doggo, it's all good.
It's
He's having a
mail
good time.
time. It's mail time. So this is a great question. This is one of my favorite questions to answer. When we talk about under collateralized, a lot of people are very averse to it, and for a good reason. It's the same reason why you don't live off credit cards, right? Because like you can have $0 in your bank account, but if your credit line says that you have $1,000, you can spend $1,000 of money you basically don't have. But you have to pay it off with interest after your period that you're borrowing from. So most credit cards are 30 days. These are called like revolving credit lines. So the difference between that and collateralization is like, okay, you cannot issue new money without having the backing asset. Over collateralized pushes this a little further. It's like you have to have 160% of the value to mint new dollars. Now, this is just like, you know, we did have money in Terra, like a lot, but the closer way to think about it, in my opinion, is that if the market cap of Luna was 20 billion and the market cap of UST was 20 billion, you actually just had $20 billion in the system, because at any point the Terra dollar, so UST, could be backed by an equivalent amount of Luna. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Does that answer your question? Or
I think so. Yeah.
explain a bit.
I think that's a good comparison that people are familiar with as well. You have like essentially like a debit card versus a credit card, where with a debit card you can only spend what balance is in your bank account. Credit card, you could have $100, but if you have $1,000 credit line, you can go crazy, and then you're in the whole $900, and it's not going to be fun on the next 30 days if you don't get some more money. So I think that's a good comparison, and it's not quite like a credit card necessarily in this scenario, right? Because you're not necessarily having like interest and some of those issues that you'd normally have in a situation. And so it's a little bit different, but that's maybe a more familiar comparison for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I see it. You can think of like the interest as the DPEG, more or less. So like kind of imagine like if I'm issuing too much of the UST, like too much money, then as that DPEGs, because you have to inflate more Luna out, you have to mint more Luna to cover it, then it just becomes this like huge credit gap, right? We're down like 98%, but we still have 2% of that money left. That's why it's kind of a novel thing, especially when we're used to traditional banking systems. But that's kind of why we're here, right?
Yeah. I guess a follow-up question then is why don't you want to take a shift and go towards a normal collateralized backed stablecoin instead?
Well, because your money, your ability to make claims on the money is dependent on the entity backing it. So let's say for example that I'm running my Onyx validator and I decide to issue a new collateralized stablecoin called Onyx Dollar, right? I can only issue as much as I have, right? And if it's $1 to one like Onyx dollar, then I need $1 for one Onyx dollar. But if there's monetary policies like inflation happening, then the backing asset gets diluted. This is also why you're seeing stuff like USDC. They're moving to just treasuries, like all these government money market stuff, because like you can't just sit on the cash like a dragon forever. Um, some knight is gonna come around and kill you for something. I don't know.
Or the Fed will start printing trillions of dollars.
Yeah. So at any point, I actually think it's an interesting discussion. Like your dollar, like if we issue a certain amount of dollars in an inflation cycle, then your dollar no longer is the $1 that you had. It's lost a little bit of value. Now, I really like Terra because it accounts for this by nature of its design. I have like some really nascent research on it that I posted in like it's called like the reflex rate. I mentioned it in the first proposal, but pretty much it's like how many times can we use $1 in the ecosystem before you have to like retire it? Does that make sense?
I kind of. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. Sorry. So if I have $1 and
Right.
I spend it on a store, and then they take that same dollar and they go spend it at another store, and this cycle continues and continues and continues. How long does that specific $1 hold its value in the economy?
I
Um,
see.
this is part of my research, and so like the Terra Luna system, in my opinion, accounts for this quite well because it reflexively inflates and then burns as demand with the demand. So your supply is like it's not perfect, but it moves in tandem with demand. Um,
Right.
let me know if I'm using too many big words. I am
No,
trying
no.
my best to not do it anymore.
No, I understand that you're doing an incredibly good job. I think like the first question, hearing a lot of this, a lot of people will have is, well, the destabilization and the death spiral that we previously went into was obviously a group of people basically abusing the system and how it worked, right? If we're going to be going back to something that's similar to that,
Mhm.
what can we do to essentially ensure that that's not going to happen?
This is a great segue into the proposal. So I've been here since September, um, like talking. Before that I was trading on chain for a few months. Um, and something that kind of occurred to me was that, and also suggested by some people, was that you cannot just go from 2 cents to a dollar overnight because it doesn't necessarily solve any of the problems that you're mentioning. How are we going to keep the peg if we repeg it overnight? I think Alex had like great start to this. It was like we just issue a new one and it's backed partly by Bitcoin. Like there's some backing to it. In my opinion, it kind of defeats the purpose of what Terra really is, which is like if we wanted to have credit cards on chain, how do we do that? And how do we make sure that, like you said, how do we make sure that people pay it back, right? If we're in a decentralized money system and we're issuing like these synthetic credit dollars, how do we ensure that our counterparty is going to pay it back? And there's no real guarantee of that. So at its core, when you think about under collateralized stuff, the only thing that really keeps it at the peg that backs it are incentives. So the incentive right now to buy at 2 cents and not at $1 is that if I buy a lot of USTC on the dollar, like if so you take how much money, like how many dollars you put in, divide it by the price. So like 100 divided by 2 cents, you get a lot more UST for your dollar, right?
Right.
So the incentive there is like, well, if it repegs, I make 98 cents of profit like just right away. So this is nice for the person who's buying it. But if you just go straight to the finish line, you just won't have stuff to defend it. So to answer your question, we have to provide incentives for people to essentially buy out this bad debt at every penny going up, hence the
Right.
Ziggy proposal. We try and develop incentives for people to engage with the network mechanism at every step. Now, right now, like probably between 0 and 2 cents, it was like I'm gonna buy low, sell really freaking high. Like
Right.
I get a 150x on my money, but on the way up, you won't get enough money. It'll just be like first come first serve gets the most money. Arbitrage is the most basic incentive we have in our system.
Okay.
I buy Luna low, I can sell it high for UST and vice versa. So
Right. And arbitrage, I think, is also fairly easy to market because it's fairly understood amongst most people in cryptocurrency. So I think that's a pretty solid incentive. But this kind of leads me down that path. I don't know if you've thought about this, but what other incentives do you see that would be beneficial? Because I imagine there's probably more complicated ones that exist.
no, it's actually a lot simpler than we give it credit for, right?
Okay.
So the big thing that I harp on for months is like, who's using the blockchain?
Hmm.
Why is there such little volume? Is it because of the tax? No, it's just because people don't want to use it. People would rather use Ethereum if they're doing DeFi. If I want to do NFT markets, I go on Solana, right? So what brings people to use Terra Classic over any other blockchain? Because we have over
Right.
150 L1s. So
True. Yeah, I guess that's a question a lot of the community needs to think about too. I think most retail investors came in simply like that are here right now simply because of the burn. That was a big thing that brought people together, right? And I think a lot of people were also attracted to the governance, which is also
mhm.
fairly unique, right? So
So,
those are two things that I think most retail investors are here for now. But we definitely need to expand the reason for being here, right? And I think these types of arbitrage opportunities will definitely start that, which is really nice. But yeah, that's giving me some food for thought as well, because there's definitely we need more, I think.
yeah. So to kind of clarify the use of arbitrage versus other methods, it just gets stuff going. Like right now, you can fork the white whale DeFi arbitrage bot, and you can just run it automatically on your parameters and through routers, is what they're called. So like if I wanted to arbitrage the Luna Classic USTC pair, they open sourced all of that, and you can just run it in the background and do something else. Now,
Right.
um, as we go on, it will not be enough. Some people say like, yeah, arbitrage is not enough. Like it wasn't enough. White whale was actually not super profitable on the peg level, but right now they would be just making a lot of money.
Mhm.
So there's a couple, like what you said, there's a couple cool ideas that we can toy with, not toy with, but like integrate if we wanted to. So the first one would be, like you said, governance. So if you like DeFi, if you like this interchain stuff that TFL's doing, if you like, what's the best policy for encouraging these incentives in our ecosystem, then get involved with governance. Run a validator, and start thinking about what it would be like to go cross-chain. And the other one is like, nah, I just want to stay on Terra Classic. I just want to meme and have fun with people. That's okay too. My thoughts on that are like, we should get consumer businesses on, but consumer businesses, right? They're not going to ask people to pay in a currency that changes value every second, right?
True. Yeah.
So the most obvious one to me, and again, I have tried a little bit to do this, is to get MMOs on here. So like MMORPGs. I know you guys are gamers like me. I was talking about this yesterday with Classy.
Yeah.
So you guys play old school RuneScape at all? Guild Wars 2?
Yeah, I
Maybe
played a lot of Diablo, yeah, OSRS,
Diablo,
yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
League of Legends.
Right. So don't get me started on that one. Okay. So what do these all have in common between the MMORPGs?
Well, they all have a form of in-game currency, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what determines the value of it?
That's well with RuneScape, for example, it's like it's a player-controlled economy. It's just supply and demand mainly, right? I'm not too sure about Guild Wars, but I believe it's similar.
Yeah.
From what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. So Guild Wars is a little different. You can buy like costumes and stuff like that. Just like League, you can buy skins.
Right.
But in all of these cases, everyone has their own currencies. We have riot points. You have diamonds in Guild Wars 2. You have GP in old school RuneScape. And then you have like all these black markets that are selling them all for Bitcoin. Like anybody knows that old school RuneScape, you trade, people just sit at the exchange and trade.
Right.
But
yeah.
So they're making a ton of money, but in order for them to have items to trade, you need people to go out and get them. So that's something bots can't do. But think of it like this: like, what if one USTC is one GP on RuneScape, and then we just trade that? They already have like a burn tax on there. Did you know that?
And there's all these RuneScape private servers too already too, right? I think it's easily replicable to make a game like that with a in-game economy, some form of grand exchange where people can transact and arbitrage.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. If we introduce multiple games, so I'm actually getting a little bit into Zeradar's proposal. Because Zeradar, if you don't know, he and I are big on like MMORPG game economies.
Cool. Okay.
My favorite one to read about, not play, is EVE Online.
Okay.
So much politics in that game. Very interesting stuff. So if we think about it like, let's say that each stable coin in our system is a different game economy, right? I mean, it's a real life economy, but like, how do we know that those are even backed at all? Like, maybe they're not. So we can kind of develop our blockchain to support these game economies, but we also don't want to, blow out one economy by arbitraging it against the other.
Right.
I'm not going to go into that this podcast, but I would definitely ask Zeradar about it. This is what the whole partition pools ABSK model was talking about. I think it's very cool, but it's a little technical and he knows more about it. So,
yeah. Another interesting example is Entropia Universe. I don't know if you've heard of that one, Duncan. But that one, they actually had a system where their in-game currency was PED. and it was 10 ped to $1 and they actually pegged it to $1, which is
Yeah.
kind of different because like RuneScape, a lot of those other examples, you have the black markets that trade it for Bitcoin or dollars or whatever it is, but those prices fluctuate depending on supply and demand. Where in their game, they had a system integrated where you could redeem it 10 to 1 and it was pegged to that. And I think it either kept it at least for like 5-6 years. I don't know if it's still that way or not. The game's definitely died off. It was like early 2000s game. But it was definitely an interesting system how they were able to maintain that through different burn mechanisms, stuff like that, net negative yield, stuff like that, where you'd go in, you'd spend money and know that you were going to lose money, but then you'd gain skill points or something from doing whatever it is. So it'd be like a trade-off where you're burning your money essentially to gain the skill points. And then hopefully in the future you could do something to make money. But definitely
Now
some
you,
interesting mechanisms there to burn down that supply and help maintain that peg essentially.
yeah. So like now you're getting to some really cool territory. This is like the exciting part. Like arbitrage, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. That's really boring. It's all technical. I can go into detail on how it works in this proposal. Sure. But what if we just like onboarded a bunch of like MMORPGs and then you peg it to the difference between the like the UST and the dollar, right? So
Right.
if it's 2 cents right now, you peg it at 50 to 1, and then you just like, if UST goes up, then you are like, if it goes up to 50 cents, now you're like 2 to 1, right? For your in-game currency. Now, why this is cool is because, oh gosh, now I'm going to talk about someone else's proposal again. So with Zeradar's proposal, what you would do is you would buy your game tokens with UST. So like,
Right.
let's say I launch a new game and I say, you can get 50 of my Duncan points, right, for my game. And then like later on, it might be worth less, but I can spend it, I can burn a little bit, and then if I want to cash back out, I'm done with the game. Because this is my big bugaboo with games, is that I buy a lot of stuff and I'm like, I can't sell any of it back to anything. So there's only like one other thing called Engine that I know does this. But basically you would, after you are done with your game points, you would put the money back into Luna Classic. So that like just incurs another transaction.
Right.
So really you go from UST, oh sorry, I'm gonna do this on my UST to your game point, your UST to your game points, back to Luna, and then you just keep going around like this. You don't go this way though. You go
Right.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So
Right.
again, that's something that I would like to say about Zeradar's proposal, because really what the Ziggy proposal is like, we need to bump the price up a little bit and then back down a little bit. But it's a very kind of, I think there's a lot of second order effects with it, which is why I'm talking about it a lot. So
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I think an interesting question, kind of getting back a little bit more on topic with your
yeah.
proposal here. Something that I find kind of interesting is why do we need to go to a $1 repeg price as like the holy grail at the end of the day? Why don't we just set our holy grail price at 5 cents or 10 cents? Like, why do we feel that that's where we have to go to?
That's a good question. I mean, I might start with the counter question. Why did we choose 10 billion as our fixed token supply?
LUNC to $1.
Yeah.
I think it's that simple. Yeah.
I mean, like, just replace LUNC with USTC. That's the same argument.
Yeah, fair.
So like when you think about foreign exchange currencies, like how many Korean wons does it take to match a dollar? A lot, right?
Right.
So do we need to peg 1 Korean won to the dollar? No. Like there's so much trading happening across tons of different economies.
Right.
Regional fiat monetary policy, or just like if you want to think about games, because it's easier for me to think about like that, then you think, what if I could take my points from one economy to another? You could actually build multiple MMORPGs using the same currency. but you have people from all over the world who are contributing to that system. And I
Right.
think the thing about UST with regards to price, and especially with regards to Luna Classic, is that if Luna Classic's price needs how do we make this cut off zeros, right?
Right.
How do we make this thing go fast? Go fast up to $1. You just want people just like trading, burning, and then they just do that like 24/7. Now, this is possible, but there's no incentives to do so, right? Nobody wants to give up
Yeah.
their Luna Classic dollars, and people who are on UST and they're like, I'm just waiting for $1, man. So really, maybe there's 9.5 billion in the system we need to fill, but realistically speaking, you're gonna have to like probably get up to double or more of that because you need to absorb the sell side of when it hits $1. And again, there's nothing that necessarily keeps UST to $1. If you check the price history through Masari, the highest price I have on my books is, or on there, is $1.21. So imagine you bought UST for $1 and you sold it for 21 cents on the dollar. Like, think about how much money you make,
Yeah.
right?
True.
There
Yeah.
you go. That's arbitrage. Except
Yeah.
now it's just in reverse. We're down 98 cents. Okay, I'm going to buy, and when it goes back to $1, then the price is going to go back down. That's why in the proposal, it's like 1 penny at a time.
Yep.
Just
Yeah, and
one step at a time.
Yeah. And I think that's the kind of interesting conversation why I posed that question originally of like, why do we need to go back to $1? Is a lot of people feel like, at least this is my impression from what I'm seeing out there, is a lot of people are familiar with the $1 stable coin. They feel like that's truly what a stable coin is, even though technically you could have a 1 cent, 2 cent, 5 cent, 10 cent. You could peg it at these different thresholds. It doesn't have to be $1, but there's like almost like this consumer confidence if it's at $1 because that's what they're familiar with, that's what they're comfortable with. And so I feel like maybe that's the end goal. But like you said, your proposal, and it doesn't need to go straight to $1. You can do these different thresholds along the way.
Right. So this kind of provides an interesting talk about how to assess the value of Luna Classic. So, like you said, stablecoins don't have to be pegged to $1. And the reason why that is because that's just very American centric, right? I just want to be able to go to my bank, and if I put in $1, I want to take out $1 later. The physical thing. So if I'm in a different country like Japan, and I put yen in the bank, I actually don't know how it works. Let me use the euro because I've been to Europe. So if I have euros, right, and I put it in the bank, I want to be able to take the same physical euro back out. Now, we don't have this in Terra. Not yet. I put $1 into the Terra Classic Bank, and I can't pull it out. I only can pull out 2 pennies right now. Okay, like how long do I got to wait before I can pull this dollar out? So in both cases, the euro, the yen, we have 22, 23 different currencies on here.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what country you're from. You want to be able to go to this global bank, more or less, and pull out what you put in. Now, there is risk to anything. That's just life. So sometimes you put $1 in and you'll get 2 cents back out. And if you make the decision to pull it out and not wait, that's fine. Now, the important thing I want to again highlight, like you said, Aesop's, 1 yen to 1 yen, $1 to $1, €1 to €1. It's not pegged to $1. It's pegged to their own currency. So.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting point. And something else that you brought up just before I circled back on that I want to go back to is you were bringing up the fact that as price goes up, let's say we hit 50-cent price, you're going to have a lot of sell pressure and we would need to be able to absorb that. How can we effectively absorb that? Would that just be having enough backing to then absorb that sell pressure? Like, how do you foresee us being able to absorb the sell pressure as price goes up 10x, 20x, 50x, things like that. Uh,
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question just to get your mind going here. It's the teacher in me. Why do you think it's important to have staking in a system that's inflating a lot? Like, why do we have inflation in the first place? Why did we ask, hey, why is it better to stake? This is a better question. Why is it better to stake and not hold it spot?
Well, I guess like the rewards is the first thing, right?
Oh yeah. But who is generating the value for the staking?
The
Oracle pool.
the Oracle pool, yeah.
Right.
That we're gonna burn.
Who generated the value in the Oracle pool?
Originally basically didn't all the value from the Oracle pool come in the collapse when there was all that minting that was going on?
Yeah, if you go onto the stats page, you can, and I know Burn and Build has a stats page. I don't know if they track this one. You should track this one.
Let's go.
Let's go. So you'll just see a huge vertical line when the collapse happened. That's just because that's how it worked. Like, because Luna is expanding to meet the demand of the sell pressure. But if there's just like never ending sell pressure, boom, you've just got this huge galaxy. You've just got this big bang, more or less.
Right.
You want to get all sciencey. Now, really, the short answer to that is all of the money that we're making is from like people who lost money in May. That's why I'm like very kind of anal about all of this, is because it feels wrong to just like, oh cool, like I'm taking all of my money, I'm just gonna go cash out. Thanks for the big bucks, boys. Now, to regards to your question, like the reason why we stake and we don't hold spot unless you're trading is because you pay what's called carrying costs. Now, in banking, this was called demurrage. Oh, I got to say it for the first time. So this is what I studied back in gym. You can go onto my Substack. It's called polymer.substack.com. So polymer.substack.com. I have one article on there, and it talks about, it's like a post-mortem of the collapse and how we can avoid that again. It's a little dense, but demurrage was basically, there's a couple different definitions. So demurrage was in the Bank of England, the London Bank, I think. Basically, it was like you'd burned your coins or your notes back to what's called bullion, so the metals. Then you'd like give that back to your bank, and they'd give you a rate, an exchange rate back for that. That's why I was like very interested with a burn module, which would be like, oh, every time we burn, we put some of it back, right? You don't have to put all of it back. You just put some of it back. Now, this is what like the tax is supposed to do. Now, to kind of continue on this carrying cost thing, that's another definition of demurrage. Carrying cost is like, let's say you run a validator, but you don't make enough to upkeep it every month. My situation, I am paying a carrying cost for that. Let's say I make $800 and I have to pay $1,500. Like my carrying cost is like $700 there because I'm just paying to keep it up. Now we have this on Terra Classic when we produce empty blocks, or proof blocks is what they're called. There's 0 transactions, but we have to make them. So essentially the validators have paid money to make this empty block, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. And I think that's a really interesting point. In Canada, where I am, we actually had a very similar thing where we were essentially getting rid of pennies, right? So you could go to the bank, you could bring all your pennies, and that's exactly what they did. They just formed them into copper bars. So
exactly.
Yeah, it seemed, and I didn't know that's what the term is for that, but demurrage.
Yeah, it's like it comes from a French root to
Demurrage.
Demurrage, yeah, to delay or be late.
Okay.
So like they actually used it. Fun fact, little Quizlet here for cranium lovers. It was factoid, right?
Mhm.
It was used as a fee when maritime shipments were delayed. So if you were late on your shipment by 3 days, you pay a fee,
Mhm.
the demurrage.
Ah,
So there's like
okay.
a bunch of different definitions. I don't know why we have all of them are the same, but
The wonders of the English language, right there.
yeah. So just to like kind of finalize the answer on your question for my Jeopardy fan Aesop's here, the absorbing of the sell pressure on Luna Classic, you're already paying those. If you do not stake, you are paying them. So whenever I'm trading, so if I just have like USTC sitting in my wallet, I'm like paying a carrying cost for just holding it. Now, when we talk about fiat monetary policy, that's why we have monetary policy, because it's predictable. It's like, oh, inflation's going up. I can plan around that. Like I can plan like, oh, I'm going to lose 7%. Maybe I should go invest it, for example. It's a little complex, but the idea is that the someone has to. We either have to get more money in the system. So if you have a few $1 billion on hand right now, go ahead and pump the coin. Uh, or so if it, in lieu of not having more money, you like someone needs to sell for the other one, right? You can just, if Luna price goes up, I can go sell it for my US dollars, but that exits the money from the ecosystem. But like putting it into UST, then it's putting it back in the ecosystem. Now the thing is, we don't have outlets for this in the ecosystem. Unity has their lend borrow for Luna Classic. We haven't supported USTC yet, but that's what Anchor was for, right?
Right.
You have a big old pile of money that anybody can come and borrow if they post collateral. Now, we could even post collateral right now in like USDC if we really wanted to. That would speed things up a lot. Like, I'm going to
True.
put one USDC up and borrow a bunch of USDC. Now you have a functioning credit system.
Right.
Because if I default on this loan, this USDC loan that I'm borrowing, you just take my US dollars, right? So it's like dollar for dollar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That's an excellent point. Yeah. Do you have any plans to do that with that, like that kind of credit system, or yeah?
well, so I was really interested. My thesis since June was that Terra Classic will survive as an unsecured credit system. We don't have this on chain. We have like Maple Finance, but you have to be KYC, not decentralized. Your information is in custody of the the Maple Finance's institutions, right? Or protocol or whatever. If I go on Goldfinch, so if you know what Goldfinch is, you're lending money to third world countries. Uh, People want to start businesses in third world countries. You cannot lend USDC without a UID, so you have to KYC.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know this. I was like, cool, I want to like get 17% of my USDC. And you also can't, so you have to be KYC and you have to be an accredited investor. So
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, so they KYC you and say, okay, you're not an accredited investor. Sorry, but now we have your information on the blockchain. It's really awful. I hate it.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, to just give you, yeah, we have stuff in that we're developing for this stuff. But yeah,
That's
that's a good
awesome.
question. I like that question. So I lost
Nice.
track for a second. So
No, that's all good. I really do appreciate when you go into detail. I think I'm learning a lot from this too, so that's always appreciated. And I think
well, good.
everyone who's watching is learning a lot as well.
I hope so.
No, you did a good job. Let's go. Okay, so we talked mainly so far about the USTC Repeg proposal, the Ziggy proposal as we're calling it.
Well, we kind of did. We talked a
Kind
little
of, yeah.
about it.
I guess we could go into more detail then. I think there's probably a couple points we didn't touch on in here.
I would like if you could ask questions so we can explain to people how exactly it works.
Sure.
But if we want to keep it simple, we can.
Let's get into that. I think that's a good segue. We'll talk about Let's in your own
Yeah.
words. How does it work?
Okay.
We'll go there. Yeah.
The simple explanation is that we take the price of USTC now, and then we either bump it up a few percent or down a few percent. So this actually enables the cross-market arbitrage to always happen as long as it's on. Because if you keep it on forever, then either we are going to pay all of that money out of pocket, or we are going to make people like Binance pay out of pocket. So
right.
This kind of proposal, we would probably need to talk to the centralized exchanges on this one, especially Binance, because there's going to be a lot of trading happening if we pass something like this. A lot. So that means, like, again, people are like, are we going to burn? Like, yeah, we are. It actually will burn a lot. Like, think of all of the USTC, if people decided all at once to move their USTC from Binance onto the chain and then back. Right. And Binance is burning, we're burning. And if you want, you could take part of that motion and just buy Luna Classic at a discount and then stake. Right. But the whole time we're actually adding to the Oracle rewards pool as well, because we have transactions, right? Because that's all we need. Right. It's just transactions and money on those transactions. And this is just the very simple way of doing it. And we can do this through like a vote, like, oh, we're going to change the rate today from 0 to 1. But we won't be able to act fast enough if we need it like immediately. So what you want to do is like specify a range, probably. So like, okay, plus or minus 1%. We're going to start off by going down or up. Just depends on what we want. So if we go down, people will take USTC from, from Terra Classic. They can send it to Binance and then sell it for cash, or they can buy more Luna Classic, for example. Then they can just go send the Luna Classic over to the chain. Now, if you keep selling USTC on Binance, price is just going to go down, 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 down. Right. Eventually, this market rate will just down, 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 and we'll catch up with each other. When this happens, we say, okay, we're going to go back up. Then people will take their USTC, for example. Mm-hmm. You can also use Luna. I'll explain this in a sec.
Sure.
You can move it from Binance back on chain. And you're like, oh, with my USTC on chain, I can buy more Luna Classic, right? So you're just like, okay, I'm going to buy more. And then you can stake it. So this won't necessarily make Luna Classic just skyrocket, because you're going to just see just a bunch of bouncing.
It's basically a game of like equilibrium, right? So like the this is my question to that. Yeah, I think like this is my question listening to that. I think this is a really, really interesting concept. So if we're with this whole equilibrium, like what systems are in place that kind of detect like when we're at that point in time, right here, and then is it going to be automated? Like, okay, we're going to go up now, we're going to go down now. How is that decided? How is that decision?
So I'm kind of so the proposal, the first one, the technical implementation would be we just add a fee that's responsive to that certain percentage range, for example. Right. Whenever we report prices with the Oracle. Are you guys familiar with how it works? I know I talked to Aesop's a lot about this. Do you know how prices are determined on the Oracle?
I'm not sure, no.
Okay, what about Aesop's?
Yeah, we had a couple multi-hour conversations about this. I remember the gist of it for sure.
Yeah, so just to kind of explain for people, we do what's called a voting procedure. So essentially, all of the validators are voting on the best price of the exchange currency. Now, if you're a validator, see, this is where we cannot fiddle with the oracle too much. This proposal basically says do it after we report the prices. So let's say we have 130 validators and they report 2 cents. Maybe they're off by a little bit. Okay, so it's going to take what's called the power weighted median of all of the prices that were reported. So they just say, okay, we see all of the prices reported along here. Some are like this, some are like that, but we're just going to take like a straight line through it. That's our price for like the next 30 seconds. Okay. And then we just like do that every 5 blocks or something like that. I have to double check. But the reason, so once we determine this price, so let's just, goodness, I'm trying to remember how so are you guys familiar with like dot plotted points on a graph?
Yep.
Gosh, maybe I should draw it here. He's telling me to draw it or not.
Yeah. Hurry up.
This is backwards. Okay, this is backwards. Great. So to give you an idea, we have like a plotted point of things, right? We'll have, hang on for a second. Let's just say we have like a straight line. It's called line of best fit. This is the best way to visualize it, in my opinion.
Okay.
Can you see that? You see all the little dots?
We can.
Okay, so imagine all the little dots are the prices that the validator reports.
Okay.
Some are higher, some are lower, but we end up taking that line and saying this is the price of USTC. Mm-hmm. Or no, actually, we say we do that for every token on our exchange. Now, the proposal, the first one says we do it for Luna. So the ticker for Luna in our system is USDR. So like the US dollar or USTC is UUSD. Korean won, UKRT. So it's a micro Luna, is what we would say. Right. Now, the USDR determines the price of all the stable coins, more or less. So imagine we have a big basket of stable coins, and all we're trying to do is say, do we want to make the basket a little bigger or a little smaller? Now, if we make it smaller, then we might have to take some out. If we make it bigger, we can put more in. So we have a basket, and then maybe Binance has their own basket, but basically we're trying to like find out where we can both fit the best basket size, let's say.
Gotcha.
I hope that makes some sense. If I'm going too fast, let me know.
Makes sense to me. I think once again, yeah, it's just a really, really interesting concept that I'm learning about just now. So my mind's kind of like,
I know. So keep in mind that this proposal, I've talked to quite a few people, and I have told everyone, I said, this will go through as many discussions as we need before we put anything up for vote. So yes, I'm planning on the 31st, but if I get the feeling like we're not there yet, I'm just going to delay it. Right. It might get pushed to February, to March, to April, to May. But the repeg it's not a question of if, it's a matter of when, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So, just like ask questions, because the first one is all the technical stuff. The second one is like exploring the financial, like potential ups and downsides of it, kind of how it works on a simpler level. I want to post a new discussion today. But from a tech level, what it is that we take the price of Luna, we go through the vote that I just described to you. This is how the Oracle works. And that's where the money comes from whenever we report those prices. They distribute what's called ballot rewards. And then you get that in your staking yield after the validator takes a commission for that work, for their honest their honest work. Hopefully they're honest.
Right.
Also, as a side note, if you have more voting power, you get a slightly better commission rate.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because power weighted medium or PWM. Okay. So again, just to simplify it a little bit, we take the price of Luna, but we're not saying Luna. We're calling it. It's called Terra SDR or SDT, or the micro unit is called USDR.
Okay.
So we take that, we report the price during that voting procedure. So we're not interfering with the validator security mechanism. And then after that happens, we say add a fee, or is it plus or minus X%? So negative numbers are not really done on blockchain. We use unsigned integers, which is like 0 to, I don't know, it's like 4 billion or something. Depends on how big the byte size is. But basically, we can modify it by saying, okay, we'll take a percent of the reported price that we agreed on and then apply a fee. And then for the next however many blocks, that's what we're going to trade it at. In the long term, this is going to be very useful if we try and onboard different countries, because we want them to have their own monetary policy.
Right.
We want, people in Korea, South Korea or Japan, we want them to be able to like adjust it as they need it. So we can work with them down the line, but since most of the money's in the US dollar, the Korean won, and Luna, obviously, that's where we're going to start. So does that make sense? Any questions?
Yeah, I think a question that came to mind that I think the audience might have is what avoids a scenario where we end up selling the price. Okay, so let's take the 2 cents example, and we do a plus or minus 1%.
Mm-hmm.
What prevents a situation where we sell for 1% less than 2 cents and we buy for 1% more than 2 cents? Like, that's obviously not a good scenario. Then we're having a essentially 2% loss net if you did both a buy and sell in that scenario. What prevents us in this system from having something like that happen?
This is the next part that I'm going to try and address with today and going forward here, because I've gotten that one like, won't this just like blow out Luna's price? I'm like, yeah, I don't know how to fix it yet. So like you said, you can't just buy and sell and buy and sell and buy and sell. That doesn't necessarily produce value. But again, this comes around to what I was saying, incentives. What would incentivize you to keep your money on Binance versus Terra Classic, right? If we could do the same thing as what Binance does, would we keep more of the money on the system? That's why I'm saying consumer businesses are really great. So yeah, we want people to keep, let's say, their USTC on the system, and we want them to use it. But people like me, there's just no reason to use it except to trade very weird, complex financial strategies. Now, with Luna Classic, that's different. So maybe we can structure it. We're pitching around a few ideas of, okay, maybe we can, someone was saying this morning, I was on LUNC Live this morning, they were saying, what if we let's say we pull money onto our chain. How do we keep it here? Right? So they can buy Luna Classic and stake it out of their own accord. Or we can basically say, if you take this arbitrage opportunity, you have to wait 21 days before you can send it back. That's a good buffer, but I think it's going to take a long time. I mean, it would basically, what you would do is you just vest it like over time. So it is kind of nice. It's a good suggestion. So we were saying like Eris Protocol, for example. You guys are actually not whitelisted on Eris Protocol. So this would benefit you if you were interested in it. So let's say we want to have people, whenever they take the trade, that bonus trade, Some of that money goes into, say, the liquid staking derivative is what it's called, the LSD, um, which is LUNC through Eris, so AMPLUNC. Now, what LUNC is that you stake LUNC with LUNC, and then it stakes it with the whitelisted validators, and you over time they auto compound it for you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you don't need to use we have one protocol that supports auto compounding, and we're giving it all to all nodes, right?
Right. Okay, dude.
So, like Classy made the move over to Eris, and I think it's a great idea. Philip was really bummed because I talked with him back in October, and we were trying to get those liquidity pools incentivized, because in order for that kind of volume to happen, we need money in that pool. People need to be able to say, because what you can do is you say, I want to stake LUNC, I get LUNC back, but if I want to trade it to USTC or LUNC, then I have the option. This also is really important if you're big into the interchain stuff that Luna or TFL is doing, because what they're going to be working with, guess what it is? Liquid staking derivatives.
Yeah.
So if you know what Stride is, PFC runs a node for Stride. We have like staked Osmo, staked Atom. We have different forms of staked Luna. We have the backbone staked Luna. We have the LUNC staked Luna. We have StaterX staked Luna. They have a bunch of them. But really what this does is that it gives you different options for participating on different chains using these LSDs. You can still use your money. Now, the one caveat to this is that when you stake for an LSD, you give it to the protocol. So this has financial security in it. But again, we want people to stake their own in the end, because otherwise, like, so you get stuff like Lido, if you know what Lido is.
No, not familiar.
Really? Okay, so Lido runs liquid staking derivatives, like staked Ethereum mostly. Now, what happened was they were like, stake Ethereum with us, you'll get a better yield than pretty much anywhere else. We bond it to the Beacon chain in preparation for the merge. But so they get a better rate, and then they give you a governance token called LDO, so Lido DAO, and then you can vote on stuff in the Lido protocol. Now, this is what we refer to as cartelization. Basically, Lido's a cartel. They captured like an insane amount of market share just by doing this. Like something like 34%, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
So imagine you start a protocol and you're like, I just got 33% of the Ethereum supply. Like,
that's insane.
Yeah, like they make the buku bucks. Now we can mimic it on Luna. Basically Eris protocol. They are one of several versions of liquid staking LUNC. And you can, or Luna, they do both. And you can use that money however you like.
Okay.
So you keep the fund. You basically create financial security in the network, the proof of stake bit. But the trade-off is like probably over time. Like you have it liquid, but your yield is going to be a little less over time, in my opinion. It just depends. It's kind of a big topic.
That's fair. There's a whole rabbit hole to jump down.
Yeah, there's like a lot of rabbit holes, and people are like, why are you on Twitter all day? I'm like, because anytime you don't see me tweeting, I'm like reading about this stuff. So
that's fair. This is a lot of food for thought, though. I think let's circle back to the Ziggy proposal.
Yes.
I think so. Let's give a basic pros versus cons, I think, for everyone who's watching. I think that'll be a good way to kind of bring this all together.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, so let's start with pros. I think obviously we always like hearing the good stuff. So let's talk about the pros of this proposal, what it'll bring to LUNC, and then we'll get into the cons.
Okay. The most basic pro is trading. What trading does is whenever someone trades on like Luna Classic USTC, the LUNC USTC pair, people who are providing liquidity in LPs, so like Astroport or TerraSwap, they get paid a fee. We also pay a transaction fee to the Oracle pool. And then you pay us. I don't remember. I think the swap fee still exists. So that actually would burn, really.
Yeah.
So think of it like this. If the volume on the chain goes up by like 20x overnight, how much do you think are we going to burn on either coin? Another pro.
Right.
If the sexes
The sexes.
if the exchanges like Binance agree to this, so Binance is like, they're very gracious with us. So
Right.
let's say they agree to this. They also get a lot of trading volume. Now, if they burn 50% of their fees, you have burning happening on chain and off chain, and they can do it like every month, every week. And we can basically we get our Binance burns back without needing to remint. Like, that's probably the best one. Downsides. Have to do downsides. It probably will need a code implementation. So we'd have to ask the L1 team if this is feasible in the first place, and programming. So yeah, but like, is this going to compromise Oracle security? I'm trying to design it so that it doesn't mess with it. But more importantly, the big downside that people see is like, this is going to make Luna Classic price go down. And I'm trying to kind of abate this, because it's kind of not, it's not, it's not possible to go fully risk-free on this kind of stuff. Like, investments are not risk-free in the first place. But I would like to phrase it like this. Would you be willing to take like a minus 10% hit now for a 20% increase later? So net 10% increase. So you're like, well, I guess it's more accurate to go 11 or 11% or something. Right. So -9 now for plus 10 later. I think that's the math. And because, and that doesn't mean it's going to go -9. It could go like -99 again. I don't want to like, I'm just saying that's like the worst case scenario. I'm trying to design it so that it would only move by a few percent. But remember, just like the tax. So I told people, when I pay a 0.2% tax, I actually pay like 4 times that amount. So in fees and swaps and all that stuff. Right. So like if I did 1.2% on a 500 USTC trade to Luna, right, I would actually pay like 9 USTC. And most of that is getting burned. That's why I was like, I don't really like this stuff. It doesn't make me want to trade. Yeah. So we can keep our tax. We go full burn, which I think is passing now. So we go full burn. We have increased gas rates. So we're increasing our gas rates by 5x right now, if that passes. Mm-hmm. So more fees, more burns. Someone else did that. But the downside of like, will it hurt the price of Luna Classic? Like, when you buy and sell an asset, it'll go up and down. You're just going to have that volatility. Are you willing to A, ride out that volatility, B, hedge your risk, like plan in advance, more or less? 3, would you be willing to buy at a discount and or stake it? Right. An incentives question, more or less.
For sure. I think like the majority of the community at first glance, if they see like minus 9%, whatever it might be, they're gonna be like, oh my god, like there's no way. But with that being said, obviously there are a lot of pros here too. So if we can educate them en masse on what those pros are and how to essentially reap those rewards, I think they would be a lot more willing to take that little dip for bigger returns in the future. So I think I've found what my job is here. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Wouldn't it be good, Duncan, to maybe have some kind of stop system that if it goes down more than 10% in a day, it stops? Because in theory,
Yep.
if I'm understanding correctly, if we use that plus or minus 1% as an example here, every 30 seconds, it's calculating a price of the Oracle module with the validators. Then let's say it's at 2 cents again. Then we decide, okay, we're going to go down 1%.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now
then
you're
it
getting. Now
calculates
you're
30
getting it.
seconds later. Couldn't it
Yes.
theoretically then go down another 1% 30 seconds later, and then
Yeah.
another 1% 30
Yeah.
seconds later, and then another 1% 30 seconds later? Like,
Mhm.
couldn't there be a scenario where that happens?
Yeah, it can. Now you're getting to the meat of it. With Ziggurat, so Ziggy, with Ziggy, remember 1 penny at a time. A couple people I know, like Redline has suggested this. I know LUNC Nymph has suggested this. Quite a few people have suggested this. Use soft peg is what it's called. So like, okay, let's set our target so that when we hit 3 cents, we stop it. Or if we hit 1 cent, we stop it. Like you basically turn it on. You kind of like imagine you have a snowball. You just push it down the hill. Right? If I just let it roll, oh, that was going to be a big snowball, right? But that could be
Yeah.
good or bad. So really what we're trying to do is kind of nudge it to one side and nudge it to the other. Maybe like, God, I can't think of a good example. Was thinking like when you're in a bus, it's jam packed. You're trying to like make a little bit of space to yourself. You just kind of like rock back and forth.
Mhm.
But to keep it more concrete, like you said, we don't want to like go past a certain point. So we can say, all right, we change it by like 0.15%. And if it goes up or down that much, you just stop it. So
Okay.
that's our soft peg. It's the soft
Right.
peg's not like 2 cents in particular. The soft peg is the price plus 0.15%. And when it hits that, you collect the data and you say, what happened here? Is it effective? And then you would test it again. Say, maybe you go bigger this time. Okay,
Right.
you say, everyone, pay attention. We're going to go up 1% this time and not 0.15%.
Right.
Okay, now the swings are a little bigger.
Yeah.
But how did the system respond to that? Because we have a lot of arbitrage bots running on
Right.
here and on Binance. But see, this is one of my favorite parts. Okay. So imagine the volatility on this kind of idea.
Right.
What do traders love?
Well, big gains.
They like big gains. But the arbitrageurs, what they love is like they like big gains a lot of the time. They just take like it's not like 2,000%. It's like 1% 2,000 times.
Right. Yeah.
So I know a lot of people who trade and they are like quant traders, especially. They're just gonna run an algo that says, all right, I'm just gonna like when this starts bouncing, I'm gonna like put it in this little corridor, more or less. You just watch it bounce up and down, and then you get it. Do you this is kind of I hope this is not too abstract. Do you know what a sound wave looks like?
I've seen some imagery before. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to draw it for you, but I've seen some images of it. Yeah.
Sure, I can try and explain it. So if I were to take a drum or just clap, for example, if I go like that, there's a
Yeah.
loud noise at the beginning, and then the wave. So I'm gonna do it like this,
Yeah.
boom, and then it just kind of trails off. This is called the tail end of the thing. So when we change it at first, we're probably just going to have a big sound at first, and then it's just going to trail. But what we're doing is like we're trying to make music going up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I hope this makes sense. Like I'm
does.
willing to just take the time and explain it because it's a very, very simple change. It's like
Yeah.
what I try to say to people is like when you're in space,
Mm-hmm.
if you change your trajectory by like, you could even change it by like less than a degree,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna just, you will go in an entirely different universe if you're not
Right.
careful, especially with all the planets. And you're just like, ooh.
Yeah, when you're talking about like such a vast ecosystem, right? Yeah.
Right. And because think again about the dot path, this thing here. So thank you. So think about those little dots like planets.
Yeah.
And then the line is the trajectory we're planning on.
Mm-hmm.
If you increase the prices of this, which can happen, by the way, in this proposal, because
Mm-hmm.
like Aesop said, if you don't turn it off, then you're just jet thrusting like all over the place. Like, because if these dots spread out too far, it's gonna like go like way up or like way down.
Right. Yep.
Because so this is the other part that I just realized in explaining this.
Mm-hmm.
If we bump it by a few, just a fraction of a percentage point, and then in the next following voting procedures, that the newly reported USTC price is just like now it's bigger and smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Your median, the median price is it might increase. Now, many people probably don't know this, but if in the Oracle module, if the standard deviation percentile, basically, if your vote deviates too far from the median, you do not get validator rewards. So it's 7%, I think, is the default.
Mm-hmm.
And you pretty much don't want to increase the margin of error here. So we need to find a percentile that's like, okay, maybe it's 1 basis point. Okay, how much is this going? Because if you do like 2% and it just starts going like this, now you have prices everywhere. Nobody's getting staking rewards. Duncan's just screwed up the entire system with this proposal. So again,
Right.
as many conversations as it takes. 1 penny at a time, 1 idea at a time.
For sure. I think from a lot of the feedback that you've got so far, what would you say that you've learned about your proposal so far from the people that are knowledgeable commenting on it? I think that'd be really interesting to dive down. Like, would you say like about these adjustments, for example, right? Have you gotten much feedback about that? And if so, like, what did you learn about that?
So I have two different so the two actually got feedback from Alex and TCB on this.
Okay.
They said, I think this creates an environment where USTC is favored over Luna Classic. And I'm like, well, I guess my bias is showing. So yeah, so
That's
it's
fair.
good. So and Redline has said the same thing. They're like, I think this just drains all of the money out of Luna Classic. So but that's why we go through discussions, right? We don't just like, I'm not just going to throw it up for a vote and then get salty if it doesn't pass. So
Right. Right.
if even if in its final form it doesn't pass, you just go back to the drawing board. On the other hand, I've had a lot of people DM me and they're just like, this, I think this works. Like, I think this is the proposal, because what it is that you're like, what we would say in game design maybe is that it's elegant. You guys familiar with game design elegance? It's
I'm
kind of
not.
okay. So like, you take a really complex topic and you make it really
Mhm.
simple. So it's simple enough to understand when you're using it, and
Okay.
there's enough complexity for nuance.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
like,
That makes
if
so
I'm
much sense.
playing
Yeah.
Overwatch, because big Overwatch player here, if I'm playing Reinhardt, right? I swing the hammer, I put up the shield, I throw fireballs, and I charge in, right? Those are your power moves. Now, I was a big Reinhardt player, like high level, you know. Not the best though, that's for sure. But you could do these cool little weird tricks. You could swing your hammer. When you connect the hammer, you jump backwards and put up your shield.
Right.
So
okay.
you have these like fractions of a second. This is what we call tech, right, in gaming.
You're essentially like animation canceling, right? You're
yeah, like animation canceling. Great example.
Yeah.
So like if I anim cancel, then yeah, he gets it.
Yeah.
Not everyone's as nerdy as me.
I play a lot of League of Legends. You know, I use those animation cancels all the time.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting, though. Yeah, I think that's really important for any concept, any game. Is you need to have it needs to be very complex so people can really jump down that rabbit hole and expand upon it. But you also need somebody to be able to look at it and watch it and interact with it and be like, yeah, this is easy, because that way you're appealing to all different demographics, right? You're
exactly
retail investors, and you're appealing to the developers, right?
and institutional investors.
That too, yeah, for sure. And I think that's where you really come in. This is going to probably drive a lot of interest there, I believe, personally, the institutions.
Me or Goldman Sachs guy over here?
No, well, your proposal, but I guess Aesop's is all over it now.
Some people know, but I'll be in Las Vegas. I know, right? In a couple weeks. Someone wanted to fly me out and talk about this. I was like, I can't go. Like, I'll pay for you. Okay.
I'll go.
So now. If you're in Vegas from, I think it's 25 to 27, just shoot me a Twitter DM.
Where are you based out of? If you don't want to share, that's totally cool. But
California, Southern California.
Cool.
Yeah.
I might be going to California actually. So
come visit.
If I do that. Yeah,
I tell people people are like, oh, well, like, what about your location? I'm like, you can come and steal all of my student debt. I would be happy for you to do that. Wrench me, take my student debt. I will be glad to get out of that. But I'm like, but before you do that, let me take you out for a coffee. Let's go get Korean barbecue. LUNC Development Fund. They're in LA. So if you do fly out to LA, let me know, and I'll drive down and meet you guys up. I'll give you a ride. So
cool, man. Yeah, that sounds like a fun time. I think we've gotten. Yeah, we've covered a lot in this video. I think there's going to be so much to unpack and so many clips to share, and also a lot for me to talk about too. So I do really appreciate all of your personal thoughts, weighing the pros and the cons, explaining everything, teaching. I think you're very talented at teaching.
Thank you.
Thank
you for having me on. It really helps, actually. People are like, can you host a space? I'm like, I'm just not thinking about that stuff. So when people are like, can we have you come and talk on our like podcast or like our show? And I'm like, absolutely. I'm glad you asked.
Sure. Definitely appreciate you coming here.
Yeah.
I guess then, CK, if you're down, I'll do some closing questions here and we'll wrap things up. Awesome.
Let's do it.
So, Duncan, the most important closing question here: do we burn the Oracle pool?
We're already burning it, dude. Let's be honest.
Burn it all at once, though.
We're just look. You stake 5 trillion LUNC right now. We can burn the Oracle pool immediately.
Tempting.
All right, guys.
You heard it from the man himself.
Binance, you watching?
Yeah. Sounds good. Let's see. Another question for you here. How do you feel about the current state of Terra Luna Classic? What are your feelings just overall in our current state here?
Oh, that is an interesting question. Right now, my favorite thing to say right now is I'm a terrible person. You know? Terrible.
Oh boy. Yep.
Oh boy, he's not even a dad yet. So when the crash happened, this sounds really weird, but when the crash happened in May, dude, like you know how people say like don't catch a falling knife? I watched the knife hit the ground and I was like, you just take it and you run with it, right? And I've been doing that like just all nighters, like just long nights, researching, trading, writing. Like you can go all the way back in my Twitter history. I came in March and I started posting a lot about Terra in May, and just it hasn't stopped. But so I've been bullish since then, even with the whole FTX thing. Again, a different one if we want to talk about that, because with Luna Classic, if we want to talk about Wrapped Luna, there is a lot of how do I put this? Right now, Wrapped Luna unwraps to LUNC. We want Wrapped Luna to unwrap to Luna. But if you look at how the contract works, if you look at how the shuttle, the shuttle, mostly wormhole, if you look at how that looks, it's like there's some problems. And right now, the shuttle is going to be closing on the 31st of January, I believe. I would be very, I can't really recommend anything. So like, I would just like ask about that because when Luna or Wrapped Luna gets affected, we get affected too. Actually, whatever we do affects Wrapped Luna, just so you know.
Right.
So if we vote in changes and it completely like if I propose this change and it completely hoses Wrapped Luna, dude, they're gonna be like they could be like pissed about the price. But you know, I think it's more than just the price for this guy.
Yeah,
we could talk about it another time.
We will. I'll probably pick your brain on that.
Before the 31st.
Yeah, we have what? Yeah, not even that many days. Okay. Yeah, I think what I'll probably do, if it's okay with you, Duncan, is I'll reach out to you and we'll discuss that because I've been putting it on the back burner. I didn't realize we were on this much of a time crunch.
Yeah, I think it's the 31st. I think that's the Twitter handle was at TerraC_money. So if you want to confirm this with Terra_money, to see if that is even a legitimate page. Because I had a bunch of people send me it, and I haven't verified it yet.
See,
but if
I will look.
Yeah, check with the Terra_money official page to see if they mentioned it.
Okay.
But just as like a precaution, you know, like is the centralized
31st?
Yeah, but is that? I mean, we have to verify that info. So.
Oh yeah, the counts.
Because someone could have just made that page, right? Is it the official Terra Money page?
Right. Fair.
So it's the same thing of like, well, is so and so insolvent? This exchange. If we think about Luna Classic as it is right now, we are very insolvent. We cannot make claims on $9.8 billion.
Yeah.
Right. That's why it's important, because let's say like, I don't know, just some random governing body comes in and is like, dude, we want to claim all of the USTC at once. What do we do? What happens? Like,
yeah,
I have to think about this because I have like a lot of loans in Nova. So if I kept 200 USTC on there, and the price just sends to full zero, I'm now even more even more in debt. So that's why I take on the 1-year loans. So anyways, with that being said, let me let you close it off here.
Sounds good. Last closing question for you here. What do you want to see the community, whether that's devs, community members, whoever, accomplish in the next 3 months?
I love that question. That's so wholesome. You know, first thing my inclination is to have more fun. The last 3 months were not fun. they were awful. I had such a
True.
horrible time, like dealing with all of this stuff, like especially when trying to go on Christmas break vacation, and I get a call the night before about like, hey, so like the whole Terra Rebels thing. I'm like, I want to go on vacation. So one, have fun. I think I talked to Crypto King. We've put it on the back burner for us. So if you guys want to do it, I would happily support you on that. Like I can even help code the themes for it. We were talking about new wallet themes, Aesop's. So like seasonal ones like spring. We can have one for spring coming up here. And then if you want to burn LUNC to unlock the theme, we could do that. So one is have more fun. Two is let's get some like people developing on the chain and using it. I want you guys, I want the community to use it. I want to develop on it, but I'm spending so much time talking and researching. I mean, I've told people like I'm trying to get development going for Nova, for Anchor. Can't really do Mirror quite yet. And I have a video game that I want to develop. So I can bring it to the Terra Classic chain first before any other chain. And you guys would be the first one to do it.
Yeah, I'd be 100% down to do that. We could do like even some kind of poll. I know like setting up like RuneScape private servers, for example, isn't like horribly complicated. So we could do something along those lines, some kind of like PK
Minecraft
private
server.
server.
I'm not going to endorse any of that because it's against their EULA.
Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah, that is fair.
Yeah.
And Minecraft is especially.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it's their product,
Yeah, that's fair.
They will. So I did talk to Jagex, Mod Ash in particular. I said, what will it take to get old school RuneScape on chain? And he just told me, because he's very responsive. So you can add him. He said a lot of our players are just really against that stuff.
Interesting.
Well, gamers hate microtransactions. They hate using more energy than they already do. Like, oh, it burns the world. Well, like your video game does more energy than blockchain. And then, like those in the NFT, like you're stealing art, basically.
Right.
But he said they have like a launch pad for new studios, and they'll help you get integrated. So if we want to develop a crypto game and have it on the Terra Classic blockchain, we can ask Jagex, we can ask a different publisher and things like that. So, but most importantly, just have fun. Now that the devs can do dev work, it's nice.
For sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to layer 2 applications. I think Gamify is huge, and that's one we gotta double down on. Because
I have some ideas, but you gotta let me do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that because I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
Sounds
cool.
Good. Well, Duncan, we really appreciate you joining us here today and giving a lot of information about your proposal and just other great conversations. So definitely appreciate the time, and we look forward to having you back sometime soon, hopefully.
Yeah, by the end of this month. Pleasure being on and talking about it. I really appreciate it. So
it's our pleasure, my friend.
All right.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
Peace out.